Wow. We have entered into the great, great work. I am so, so glad to be living in a time where this information is available and this type of healing that can happen. Because if I didn't, I don't know who I would be. Anyways, happy Christmas. Merry Christmas. You could tell I'm very excited about talking about this topic because it has changed my life, but it's changing the people around me, and I'm just like, I'm so grateful to be able to offer something that brings actual healing and empowerment to other people. Like, I feel like that's always what I've wanted, you know? Hold on, guys. I feel like that's always what I wanted, is to be able to offer something that can be truly transformative. And I believe that through I wrote nervous system shape shifting is the way to do it. And it's actually the root experience that occurs, all based in science, all based in actual research and the body's most basic systems, which is the nervous system and all the other things. But then also to be able to have shifting in the 3D realm based on inner work. That's where the spiritual side of me comes out and is like, absolutely yes, we are doing this. So let's get into it. I'm going to start you guys off with an example of what I mean by nervous system shape shifting and going from a dysregulated, survival-based, maybe toxic in a lot of ways nervous system into a healthy, loving, safe nervous system, and the process that occurs through this adaptation that we are all kind of put into regardless. So I'm going to make it really clear for you. Like in the TV shows and the movies that we watch, we have an orphan. Okay, there's always that orphan that gets adopted by a loving family. And what does this orphan do when the love starts to come in, when the safety starts to come in, when the actual regulated space is now its new environment? The orphan rejects it, usually acts out, fights back, but is really just acting in the way that it always has. And it is not equipped and entrained yet to be in a nervous system that can offer abundance, health, healing, and wealth. We're seeing this truth because if a person really wants this type of life and they have a nervous system that's like this, they're never going to be able to have circumstances like this because they will reject it because it's just not safe for them. It feels like a threat. It feels like, what the hell is this taboo, gross thing that I never came across? And they will reject it and go back into their old ways unless they're kind of forced into a situation, which, I mean, and they kind of have to adapt, and that's ultimately very healing and helpful for them. But what happens when you're not an orphan? You know, what happens when you grow up in a very dysregulated environment and the people around you are super in fight or flight and survival mode, and you don't want to be that way anymore? You come across some information, you start to really take care of yourself, you get into holistic healing, you become like a therapist or something, and all of a sudden, the importance to having regulation and safety within the body becomes your number one priority. What happens in those circumstances? And that's where I'm going to speak from you from. And that's where I'm going to speak to you from, okay? Because that has been my experience. And I can always talk through my own experience, right? When we talk to and refer to healing and transformation, we are referring to shape shifting into a nervous system that could be in a healthy, regulated state. The work is shifting from dysregulation to regulation and basically living in a new experience, because that's what happens when this change occurs. You feel as if you are a completely different human, and that's because you are no longer living as you once did, because your nervous system is no longer a match for what you once had. So when you begin to do nervous system regulations, and I would not even say that, I would say just transformative work, bringing awareness to behavior patterns and recognizing when you go into fight or flight, when you go into survival mode, when you start speeding up, when you start rushing to doing something. And in those moments, saying, oh, I'm dysregulated here, and becoming aware of where you are still dysregulated. Where do those wounds come out? Where do these things come out? Because this is your program. This is your program playing out in front of your face. This is your unconscious, subconscious programming. The program that you were given and fed like a little baby, and you had to adapt because you had to survive. You had to survive in a tribe. And the tribe's program is very much your basis of how you are. When you are in fear, and when you are in scarcity, or when you are threatened, you will resort back to your old survival-based programming, because that's how you survived as a baby. And now, after you become super conscious of this and you start to become aware that your subconscious is playing out, you want to make these changes through the process of becoming more regulated, even doing the practices to slow down, even meditating, even trying to just get in touch with your body more and more, and creating safety within yourself, releasing emotions, releasing trauma. You aren't the same person after that. You are now a lot more safer, a lot more whole, and a lot more empowered as an individual, because you know that you can survive on a new way of being instead of the old. And that new way of being begins to create circumstances that are congruent to that new way of being. And when you make those hard, difficult decisions, because you know that it is going to transform you, because this process is not an easy process. It's not about meditating all the time. It's literally when you have something coming into your experience that isn't congruent to what you really desire, right? It's not a match for you, but it's so addictively loving, or so comforting, or so needed. And you choose to say no to that. Your system will go into freaking haywire, but you are so conscious to be able to make that decision for yourself. And to stay aware and conscious while the mind is screaming at you. Actually, the mind usually isn't screaming at you. It's usually the body that feels very uncomfortable doing this. And the mind will scream with you after you make the decision. But in the moment, and you choose, no. That's where the biggest shifts occur. That's the trajectory of your life changing. And so you begin to attract circumstances that match your new way of being. And you could finally say, oh, okay, I am what I attract. Because now I understand how this works. Adaptation and entrainment in the nervous system. This is huge, okay? This again, you could do your research on it. I'm just making that clear because I don't want this to sound like I am just blabbering. No, I do a lot of research about this, and I use that research to see how it plays out in my own life. I take my research, take my monies, and I invest it into my experience, right? So I take my research and I invest it into my experience, and I actually embody it. So I can see if it works out or not. If it works out, cool. If it doesn't, where was I wrong? And I'm wrong a lot too, and that's another reason why I can share, because I'm wrong, and I sniff out where, and I admit it, because I don't want to be. And I am wrong a lot, so I just don't want to be. So always fact check your things. I'm not going to throw out polyvagal in different words that I don't fully understand yet, but I'm going to say entrainment, which is that adaptation process, and it's to the most dominant nervous system in the room, okay? And I'm saying this point because we are leaders here. We are leading people into a new way of life, a positive way, an empowered way of life. Not because we're better or we know more, but because we are empowered and we can offer that to somebody else. And so when you understand entrainment and adaptation, you recognize that your nervous system adapts and entrains to whatever is the most dominant person in the room, the most dominant nervous system in the room. An example of this is when you go to a workout class. You might not catch this, but I have catched it because I'm very aware and to subtle changes in myself and in the world. I caught myself adapting to my trainer, my coach's nervous system in order to keep up in class. That when I came in there, I look for the leader to lead me so I can adapt to her nervous system so I can get through class and get able to perform in the way that I want to perform. And when I can't adapt and my body is slower and stuff, yeah, I recognize the difference, because the days that I'm able to, my performance is a lot better because I'm taking in basically her cues, her way of moving, and basically her energy, and using it for my experience. And entrainment and nervous system happens, I recently saw this, is like body cues and cues of the individual you adapt. So even with your mother and your father, maybe if you don't even take in their belief systems, whatever, but you're adapting to how they move their eyes, or how steady they are, how they speak, how they raise their volumes when they have certain circumstances happen. When something happens to them, how do they react? You are watching this and observing it. And in order to survive and stay safe, you have to adapt these things so you can fit in with the tribe. Okay, so when you start to break free from that, they will hate you, and you will love you, because you no longer have to live the way that they lived, and you can free yourself. I'm joking, guys. You just will be able to stay, when they react or go crazy on you or something, you're able to stay calm because you realize, oh, okay, somebody's just playing out their stuff, and you're safe. So I went a little off track there, and I apologize for that. I want to bring us back to what we were talking about, which was the entrainment and the dominant nervous system in the room. So why does this matter for leadership and empowerment? So if the body and brain adapt to the most dominant nervous system, the one that's most required for it to survive and get through, imagine how powerful that can be if that was you. If you had the nervous system that was regulated, abundant, wealthy and confident, sturdy and safe, you now have the dominant nervous system that people could adapt to. And this can heal people. This will heal people. When you are no longer creating connection through wounding, and instead you're creating connection through empowerment and seeing the truth of that individual instead of how it always was or how you related to them, you heal them. I recently picked this information up and it changed me. It changed me because I saw healing in a way different way after this. And why is it so hard to break those wounding patterns? Because if you heal somebody, if you no longer see them in that circumstance anymore, they can leave. They will leave you. They could, or they might not. Who knows? The relationship is no longer a match for the nervous system. And so that's challenging to wrap your head around, because to be able to love in that degree is a challenge. I'm going to end with this note. True healing happens when you undo the patterns that disempower, and you live in a state that can empower yourself and others around you. Merry Christmas. I wrapped it up and sent it. Oh my God, it's Christmas. Yeah. Bye, guys. I wanted to add something on polyvagal because I searched it up. There's a lot of big words, but It highlights three main states: ventral vagal, safe social; sympathetic, mobilization, fight or flight; and dorsal vagal, immobilization, shutdown, with neuroception, unconscious threat detection, and co-regulation, regulating states with others, being key concepts of healing and connection. So polyvagal explains how the autonomic nervous system, particularly the vagus nerve, creates a hierarchy of responses to perceive safety or threat, linking our physiological state from social engagement to fight or flight to our emotional and behavior experiences, emphasizing the evolution of social connection as a core survival mechanism. And I think that just is important to have as an understanding. I mean, it's a lot of spaciness that can occur from that, but for me, it's like, what I hear is that social connection, which is basically what I'm talking about when we're talking about entrainment and adaptation. That's the social connection with the ones around you. This is what creates your nervous system. I want to make clear that you don't let go of fight or flight or having these survival patterns that are there to actually protect you. That's not what this is about. You're not going to be regulated like that all the time. You're not. And the process looks quite opposite to that. But you do come out on the other side feeling, well, let's keep going. When you have a rubber band and you start to stretch it, and you stretch it too much, it snaps. So you start to stretch it a little bit, you're like, oh my god, what's going on? So much. And then you could stay here. And you stretch a little, stay here. Stretch a little, stay here. And that's literally what the process looks like. When you stretch it and you're going like, ah! You don't think you're ever gonna make it out alive. It's never gonna end. All of a sudden you're like, I did it. I got here. Got to the next level. Okay, so I just want to end on that. Oh my god. Are you freaking kidding me? This piece? Look at this little bow though. Cute, right?